On the beer side, we've got two-ish beer news things. One thing's about ready to be tapped. We're about ready to tap our Belgian Blonde, which is kind of a variation we've done off of our Neo Vision in the past. But you know what? We buy a lot of Belgian yeast and don't sell a lot of Belgian yeast, so
we're using expired stuff.
And you need to buy more German yeast.
I mean, it's easy because we got somebody that outlets our German yeast. Sometimes, actually, we got some German yeast about to expire, too. Tell Damon he needs to start enjoying Kaiser again.
So yeah, we got the Belgian Blonde coming on soon. There's an Australian hazy that I did start to finish, and that was like the first thing that I've done on the system back there by myself. And I actually took home a sixtel of that and tried it last night, and I'm pretty proud of it.
It's tasting pretty good. Proud of it. I tasted it when we were kegging it, and it's tasting pretty good then. So yeah. I'm excited for it.
For once, I like a beer that I brew.
You always do.
Oh.
And if you guys didn't guess from the Instagram, those of you who follow Instagram, follow Instagram and like our posts.
Yes.
We did a Christmas tree beer.
Yes.
Which we're doing for Christmas, and also our Alaska beer.
It's doubling up. It's going to be the February beer launch. So if you're following the State Beer Series, we got Alabama beers, which you can submit all the way up until the middle of January-ish, and we'll do a collaborative tasting / judging / telling everyone how you did it.
Back on for that, or
absolutely.
Heck yeah. And then the February tasting is going to be Alaska, which means we will now, once that tree beer is launched, we're going to launch that video on December 26th, so that you know what to do with your Christmas tree. Then we'll be 2 months ahead, and we can really start getting ready for Alabama, Alaska, Arizona beer, which is
going to be
churro or horchata.
Yep. And one of those is going to be a lager, so we need to get that done sooner than later.
Yeah. So that's where we're at with that.
I'm excited for the Christmas tree beer because it's just malt and tree. We didn't add any hops into it, so any kind of Doug fir, I believe, is the tree that we ended up getting, this is the top part of it back here. We did a whole pine infusion luge situation.
We're going to call it Dougie Firsch.
I thought we were going to call it Santa's Pinus.
Yeah, that's the actual name for it. And we've got labels. You're welcome.
Very not phallic at all labels.
Everyone loves it. Actually, the one that I designed, Harry said he was pretty concerned with yesterday. He's like, I just don't like looking at that. It's staring at me. I can't do it.
Yeah, it is. It's essentially a penis with eyes.
You know what? And who doesn't love that?
Morning,
That's
Daniel.
Green.
Our good buddy Daniel's on.
Good morning, Daniel. I can't not say it in that same voice.
And this is the Daniel we met over in Seattle.
Oh, that we had coffee with?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. What's up, man?
All right. Any other Genus Brewing news?
I think we're good on news. We got the sale. We'll not be doing live stream next week and the week after because of
possibly not
holidays.
Possibly not the week after. That's still up in the air depending on how people are feeling the morning after New Year's Eve.
Yeah, I'll be going for a run that morning, and then if we do it, we might just do it late, or we might not do it at all because we might have counting to do. We'll see. Because New Year's, and that pretty much covers our Genus Brewing news. Let's jump into the topic, and feel free to ask questions during this. Feel free to,
Trouble Brewing with Matt wants to know what you're drinking, Peter.
Yeah, I'll talk about that later. Feel free to ask questions during this. Feel free to, riff on us and have some ideas that you can jump in on the conversation. That's part of it. Stop it. I'm trying to introduce the topic. You can wait a second.
This is shout out news. Patrick Sandy, I have the Kvite yeast and we'll get it shipped out to you this week.
Okay, there's better times to interject though than in the middle of saying something.
Be nice, you too.
Anyways, today's brewing topic is going to be things you learn very quickly as a professional brewer, mistakes that you can make early on when getting into the professional brewing world. We all know as homebrewers, there's very simple homebrewing mistakes to make. Some of those go away a little bit as you scale up, and some of those get worse. And so both these two have done both the homebrew and then the scale up into some small scale, not super big scale yet, but small scale professional brewing. And so we're going to kind of go over some lessons that they've learned first-handedly. That one.
Yeah.
Also, Patrick Sandy, we're sending you some stuff since there's an intermission in the conversation.
I got very excited because I actually have the Kvite keys from Jimmy.
And it is going to get shipped because Matt is going to make sure that we print that label and send it all in a box right after this live stream without skipping a beat.
I don't know. One thing that
Adam, why has Peter gone several sentences without being interrupted?
as far as homebrewing mistakes that translate into either larger or professional setups. One thing that when I was homebrewing, and I guess I still homebrew, but right in the beginning, I just got super excited about doing it, and I tried to go from 0 to 100, and I missed a whole bunch of steps in between. I wasn't really focusing so much on my process, which is super important to learn your system and how efficiency plays in, and things like knowing how hot your stove can get if you're working on a stove or your propane burner, so things like your boil off, so you can enter that into whatever software you're using and make better beer based on the numbers. I was just so excited to put random shit into beer, and I did, and I brewed batches that were undrinkable most of the time.
I will second that. Is learning. That's the on the homebrew scale, it's a lot more forgiving on your system than it is on the bigger, more professional, especially if you're going to be selling your beer.
Yeah.
Because you are allowed to have a batch of beer that is off by 8% in alcohol on the homebrew side, but on the professional side, if it's one of your staple beers, that's a little bit more frowned upon.
Yeah, and you can just always add whiskey on the homebrew side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just drinking on the side. I would say the kind of one of the lessons there is in just the way the mindset works when you're thinking on the professional scale versus the home scale. When considering, hey, we're going to do some weird random flavored beers. I want to do Christmas cookie, chocolate, mint, peanut butter ale or whatever. Think about making a good beer first, and then what flavors are going to lean into the flavorings, and think about the flavoring second. Whereas on the home scale, a lot of times at first we're like, oh yeah, we could throw all the stuff in there.
Yeah, which leads me to keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah, kiss.
Keep it simple. Brew a smash ale, and then get familiar with your malts, your hops. Learn which hops you don't like. There's a hop that I cannot stand. That tastes like baby puke to me, and I'm still trying to figure out which one it is.
There's hops that I can't stand the combination of flavors. aka standard West Coast hops, the 3 Cs.
Yeah, and also to learn your malts, to know what two-row tastes like, to know what Maris Otter tastes like, know what Vienna, whatever it is you decide to use in something like that.
And the big thing previously, before I started working in the professional world, Peter would hear this, is I used to say, I hate style. Now working in the professionals, I love style as a guideline.
Yes.
I used to be like, I'm just gonna throw a bunch of stuff and not worry about where it falls, which can be good, but when you're on the professional side, understanding why styles exist and the parts, the malts, the hops, the yeast that all go into that helps a lot, especially if you're trying to sell a beer to customers, because if you just say, and I think we ran into this here at Genus, hey, here's this beer. And then it's like, okay, well, what is it? They don't have any frame of reference on what it could be. So new people coming in that don't know Genus does weird stuff are going to be like, do I want that, or do I want to go with something that I know what it is?
And we can just tell them to get the f out of here.
We're experimental.
Yeah, style is a really important way to, I think, get to know how to brew certain beers, especially if you already know what the style is supposed to look like and taste like. And if your brain hasn't put all those things together yet, then, that's kind of that good, that's the bridge. It's what tells your brain the flavors that you know already and how they're made before you actually can, start building those yourselves. Which kind of, I think, goes into cart, horse, keep it simple, stupid, all that same kind of stuff we were just talking about. I'm curious about your hop that makes you throw up, because there's in my adult life in the last 3-4 years, I've actually started having some hazies that almost make me want to throw up. It's like this weird full sickness, and I attribute that to super highly oily hops. Citra and Mosaic that I have in a lot of hazies end up doing that to me, and it's just the amount of total oils that are going into there, and they just make me feel like I want to gag sometimes.
Yeah,
I don't know why. Certain hazies,
it's
not
a
all hazies,
subjective
but certain
thing,
hazies.
I was sitting down with a friend drinking the same IPA, and she was like, I like this. This is fine. I'm like, I can't even smell this.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, and for me, the West Coast, especially in other parts of the country when I was traveling in October, I did try several West Coast IPAs. that were very much the very classic, like what we had about 3 years ago for pre-COVID.
It's like super in your face.
Super in your face, but it was Cascade, Centennial, and
Seas.
yeah. But that combination tastes like soap to me. Like, I don't mind those hops when they're each individual or with other hops, but when you get them together, it tastes like pure total soap.
It's because he was drinking cilantro IPA. Someone earlier asked what I was drinking. By the way, this is just a combination of lemon, water, cinnamon, and fiber, and superfood stuff.
Trying to take a shit or something?
No?
I already did that.
Jimmy has a good question here, since you mentioned whiskey, and this is kind of a good go-between. If you guys have the option, do a Pro-Am. Do Pro-Ams, enter Pro-Ams.
For someone who doesn't know what a Pro-Am is, could you
Professional
explain that to
amateur
those?
competition.
Oh, yes.
So a lot of times Pro-Ams, what they end up doing, the goal of a Pro-Am is to win so that you can get your beer brewed on the professional scale. So Jimmy won one at No Drought. He won one here, or he won a raffle for one here.
And then he's also won at Inland Aleworks,
yeah.
and Iron Good, I think.
I thought it was Iron Goat for one of them, yeah. Anyways.
Jimmy's won a lot, but his question is speaking of whiskey, if I enter a Pro-Am, I prefer to use a method that the brewery can do legally.
Yeah, so with that, they usually cannot, well, in Washington, actually, this isn't universal to all states, and it didn't even used to be a case in Washington, but in Washington, our state specifically, you cannot add any distilled spirits, any alcohol that falls under our distillation license cannot be added to beer. However, you can age beer in barrels, and that barrel can have as much of the spirit in the bottom of it as you want.
Can't be in it, but it can be next to it.
So yeah, that's one of those weird laws that Washington made back in the day. Coeur d'Alene Brewing Company, which also had a Washington brewery, used to be a brewery that would actually put whiskey in their vanilla bourbon stout. And
I was gonna say, do you want me to name that brewery?
no, I mean now, yeah. Well, now that they have changed. Actually, they split off into two different breweries. One of them is River City, and the other one is Laughing Dog. No, one other one?
Yeah. So yeah, Stefan, most breweries can't do tinctures.
Correct. So we never do tinctures in our beers, for sure.
Even though we tell you to do it on the homebrew scale.
It's a good way to get a specific concentration of flavor with not that much actually added to your final product in terms of like volume.
Yeah, and when we do it on the big scale, it's not like we're adding that much actual alcohol to it. Usually it's just enough alcohol to rip off whatever flavor we're trying to get, and it blends into the beer a lot better because of because of the fact that it's already dissolved in alcohol.
This is also the other thing I really learned going from homebrew to professional. Homebrew recipes don't scale great into. It takes a lot of work to scale a homebrew recipe into a bigger.
Yeah, I think one thing that we could talk about that kind of falls into that is also is one of the reasons why thermal mass is a big player in how things work, on the home and the commercial brew scale. And one thing that Warren and I found out when we did the fresh hop beer was the thermal mass of a very large amount of stuff, coupled with the amount of time it would take to run things through. For example, a small counterflow chiller or any sort of a pass-through filtration system or something like that is a lot higher on the commercial scale. So if time scales up and thermal mass scales up, but those two things aren't proportional or have something different, then they can make differences happen that wouldn't happen on the home scale. The example of that is our fresh hop beer. If you want to talk about what happened there.
What ended up happening in essence is, we did our boil, and the plan was to take our hot wort, run it through our fresh hops, and then into the chiller and into the fermenter. But what ended up happening is the wort ended up not being, because of some time delay stuff, the wort ended up not being hot enough to actually sanitize and sterilize the hops. So we ended up getting an infection. And,
And that was the beer we dumped. And you know what? Beers that you dump on the it's like, well, why is my throat not liking me this morning? I must have had like so much phlegm room down my throat when I was sleeping. I think I slept wrong.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, I know, super adorable. But
The sexiest.
dumping 60 gallons of beer is slightly more heartbreaking than dumping 5 gallons of beer.
It really is.
Especially when it was a fresh hop. Yeah, that
know.
one was hard.
And all the things that went into that. And we took a video of it, and then I lost all that footage somehow.
Hey, Adam, I'm going to tell you send 2 cans of your pumpkin porter. One so we can drink here, and one so that way I can save it until I'm drinking again. Because that sounds amazing.
Yeah, also, give me lots of it.
But on that note, with the temperature, that it's kind of going back to brewer mistakes. One thing I learned going from homebrew to here is we've got cool things like glycol chillers and ways to have temperature control during your fermentation.
And wrapped pills.
And wrapped pills, which I will talk about at length at another time because I've been really, really into all the cool new wrapped products that Brewzilla has been coming out with. But, yeah, if you don't have like a cool basement or really a way to keep your fermentation stable, then that kind of affects the final product. And I think that's why I've had some batches, I mean, aside from, going from 0 to 100 and all the other stuff, kind of turn out a little less
than desirable?
Yeah, less than I was hoping for.
And I'm going to jump on the fermentation temperature because that is saying that on the homebrew scale, it's a lot more forgiving. Like, I never did VDK rests at home.
Mm.
And on the professional brew scale, it's almost, for certain styles, it is like pretty much required.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that happens specifically on the commercial scale versus a lot of home systems too is also there's partial pressures that are acting on your system way differently. Mm-hmm. And this happens in 2 different ways. One, you're usually fermenting in closed disher vessels.
You're just away from it.
Oh.
All the mics should be on. I tested them. You're usually acting in a closed system on the professional scale, not on the home scale. So you've got either a spunning valve or, and even if your system is open, i.e. you've got some sort of a blow off on your big fermenter on the commercial scale, there's still partial pressures acting just because of the weight of the beer. So more volume, especially more vertical volume, means the majority of your beer where it's fermenting is, below the top level. And the more vertically you go, the more weight is on your beer, and that actually works as a partial pressure and makes your yeast act differently, makes things like the metabolism work differently, and also affects the ability to off-gas things like sulfurs. And so there's flavors that won't necessarily automatically go away on the commercial scale that will on the pro scale, and that also works vice versa. One of those things being like the bigger you go up, the easier it is to lager, for example, because of the pressures that are acting on your yeast. If you got a lot of pressure and a lot of surface area, that's a double bottom surface area. That's double whammy for getting some crispy clear beers.
Yeah, I was going to say that was also the other thing I learned was just the being able to lager, and like when you really do a true cold crash and step cold crash helps out a lot.
Yeah. All the things you can do with glycol and stuff on the commercial scale.
And depending on the beer, the temperature control is really important for either suppressing or encouraging esters and all that fun stuff.
My Hefeweizen that I did at No Drought.
It's pronounced Jeffeweizen.
Jeffeweizen. The first batch, I got 0 banana. Second batch,
you got his banana.
Oh!
That's what she said.
Yeah.
And I'm going to just segue into the other thing that I really learned, and me and Warren have talked at length about this, is the amount of equipment that you have to clean on the professional scale versus the homebrew scale is a lot more, and you have to be a lot more careful with your cleaning practices.
But you do have the assistance of pumps and stuff, and clean in place.
Yeah, but there are a lot of tiny parts, and I think this is something that a lot of people that are understanding. They're standing over understanding of it, and that's all the small parts that get into place that pumps kind of need to clean. For example, if you have an inline chiller, and there's like, let's say an oxygenation stone in the end of your inline chiller, that's a thing that can sometimes have gunk on it, that if you don't like have one of the pumps that goes back and forth, one of the oscillating pumps to scrub action that thing, it's really hard to get. And so if you're fortunate, it never has a problem, but if you get unlucky and one time it get something on it that gets stuck and doesn't come out, then that's a really hard thing to take apart and clean.
And will probably end up in your next batch.
Yeah.
And you won't know it.
And then you got to troubleshoot and find out where it is, and you're going on a bear hunt.
And you have
Haha,
an
kid
existential
references.
crisis, and you're like, am I even good at this anymore?
But yeah, there's a lot of small parts that go into. I mean, same thing with, you got conical fermenters with all the different tri-clamp stuff on it. You got your carb stones. You've got that one bottom port at the bottom of the cone before it goes into the actual bend and the thing that comes out of your conical. Like that, you can usually come off, and since it's really far back up there, and it's also usually bolted onto the system and hardly ever comes off. There's a lot of stuff that you don't think to take apart and clean every single time, and then you finally do, and you're like, wow, look at all this crusties that could probably have touched my beer.
Seems like on the homebrew scale, you're just letting stuff sit in PBW or whatever it is.
Yeah, you can usually see most of the stuff on the homebrew scale too.
Yeah.
Sometimes people will have that with like a keg, random keg post, get something dirty in it, and then that becomes a thing. But for the most part, homebrew scale, it's a lot easier to know when you got something that's broken. And usually, if it's something that needs to be replaced, it's like, oh, I've got this $4 tube, That's pretty easy to replace.
Yeah. Yeah, the replacing and stuff. And then also, just speaking of cleaning, is on the homebrew scale, you have your like 2 or 3 things they use to clean. On the professional scale, you have like your 6 to 7 different chemicals and processes to clean.
Yeah, we could hide a body pretty well. That was another Instagram we made.
You should continue that.
Yeah.
Just the manic guy who's trying to use brew supplies to hide
Turn
his
that into a
murders.
whole storyline. That'd be a fun thing to like actually like build a story out, like build a world build around it. Tom still has 10-4 on the rapid increase of parts on the commercial scale. Heck yeah.
Okay, they're saying my mic is really low.
All right, let's take a look.
And I've turned it so it's facing more towards me.
Another thing
I'm also that slightly monotone because of my only one working vocal cord.
You only have one chord?
Yeah.
Like medically?
No, this I actually have a scar on my neck, and it's my left vocal cord is permanently paralyzed, and it's been so for my whole life.
Did a witch cast a spell on you?
Kind of. I had a cyst in my neck, and they had to remove it, so we don't know if it was cyst or surgery when I was 4 weeks old.
Sounds like you got cursed by a witch.
All right, Matt, I'm watching your bars.
Hello. Hi. Hello.
Oh yeah, that is low.
While he's trying to figure out the mic issue with Matt, one thing that I found very confusing when I was first starting out is using priming sugar stuff and using the different calculators for that. I almost always messed it up, either bottle bombs or under carb stuff. So when I am bottling at home, I use those carb caps because I bottle in 12-ounce bottles, and those little carbonation drops by either Cooper's or Mangrove Jack. Really, I mean, it's just dextrose in a little candy form that's portioned out specifically for 12 ounces. I haven't had any issues with those. Like those a lot. I recommend those to the customers because they're foolproof, and you get properly carbonated stuff, at least in my experience with them.
So you're recommending that for me?
Well, I'm recommending that for everyone. I mean, if you got your priming sugar calculations and all that stuff dialed in, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But
if it is broke,
if it is broke, fix it.
Okay, am I sounding better? Yeah, because you've had some of my bottle bombs.
you are definitely back.
I'm back
Yep.
from outer space.
Did you just walk in to find you here with the look on faces?
Why can't
Oh,
I think
hey,
of
everyone
emotions?
is saying I'm much better and loud and clear.
Ooh,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Now you can hear my slightly monotone voice better.
Yeah, now I get peeking a little bit. Turn it back down.
Okay.
Very good. When does the beer part happen? Are we there yet?
What was that?
When does the beer part happen? Are we gonna open
I can
it?
go grab a beer for you guys to drink.
Yeah, are we
Yeah, I
doing
forgot you guys drink at like 9 a.m.
I don't
It's 9:30.
Warren, we delayed because of you.
Oh,
Hey,
thanks.
it's
I appreciate
9:45
that.
somewhere.
It's 9:40. What?
No idea how time zones work. That would be really cool if eventually we got to the point where watches were all 100% geolocated and they actually did do a rolling time zone. Like, you could go this way or that way and like have your time actually
Like
change.
the second speed up a little bit.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know if that's how time zones work.
Yeah, well, now we just have it split into like hours, but you know, it'd be really cool if they could have it be like super, super precise.
The last Chumley.
Oh, the beer you brew.
Well, let me cleanse
Yeast,
my palate
barbarian,
from this
hop,
delicious
Vic
Arctos
Secrets.
coffee.
You rinse the top of that off too, just so we're not chomping on little refrigerator bits.
Bits.
Ah, the refrigerator bits. Sound approved. Weiser had your wheat bottle bomb. Good beer though. Nice. Fix Max Mike, and then he goes to shout from behind the bar. Oh, Adam says, "Oh shoot, that beer didn't turn out great, folks. Sorry you're drinking it now." You know what? We'll find out. We haven't had a bad beer from you yet.
We also have Daniel beers, I'm pretty sure.
All right.
At least I'm going based off of how they're labeled and stuff because it looks like very much the style that Daniel labels his beers in.
Yeah.
And I'm making myself a nice.
We could also, you know, while we got things set up, we could probably also do a tasting of the Belgian blonde too, and then I can just clip the exact same whatever the timestamp is from this.
Hold on,
and give it
everybody.
to the
Hold on.
editor dude.
I got some ASMR for these folks.
Oh, I gotta get really close to this side of it.
Yeah, that's okay. Hold on, I still got a little bit of something in there.
Those mics have sides that work.
Everybody, shut the fuck up. Yes. Yeah, you like hearing that early in the morning, don't you?
Yeah, it's the sound of popping a blue pill. All my hazies have been short of expectation. Label is legit. That you know what? As long as the label's good, that's pretty much how the beer industry works.
The amount of bad beers that are sold with good labels and good marketing. I'm not
trick
going
to-
to call any names.
The trick to marketing
I'm not
is
drinking.
teaching
Oh, right, yes.
people what they
That's
like.
yours.
Sorry. I guess I'll pour a little bit more for myself here.
Hey, Frank says it's 12:30 in North Carolina, so we're not drinking early.
There we go.
Hey, it's
And I'll be in
lunchtime.
North Carolina in a month-ish. So, speaking of Stefan Sotomayor, I saw you had the Knoxville trip donation. Thank you so much.
Nice.
And I'll be heading there. I think I'm going to be taking off on the 13th of January. I'm going to be there through at least the 17th or 18th of January. So,
Wait, okay, so if somebody on our live stream brewed this?
yes.
Nice.
That's Adam Chumbley's.
Nice, dude.
And it's
Which
pretty,
you also met Adam.
pretty delicious. Huh? What'd you say?
Warren met Adam at the beer festival.
I
No.
met so many people at the beer festival. I'm sorry if I don't remember you, but this is delightful. I'm enjoying this.
See, you had nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about.
So what I'm hearing is in January there's going to be a Sunday that I am not helping out with the live stream because you'll be remote live streaming.
On the
15th.
If I'm not dead, I'm running 31 miles on the 14th. So
Me and Warren might be doing a co-live stream.
we'll see if I survive. My goal is to run the 50K on Saturday, recover, and hang out with my wife on Sunday. Then my wife's gonna go back, and then I'll have Monday and Tuesday to visit brew tubers and all that.
I am kind of jealous.
It sounds like a fun.
Adam says he did not love it, but see, hazies do better with time. Yeah, there could be something that you just didn't like about it that cleared out. If you didn't like it because of green matter, that's something that usually clears out over time. Like if it was just too planty. Xul visit. Xuul. I don't know what that one is.
It sounds like some, like Xanadu. It sounds
might
like
be a
some
brewery.
Maybe.
a
We'll look it
fictional
up.
place in a poem.
Nope, that's porn.
Oh, it's Knoxville.
So it's YouTube.
Replace the U with red and sure.
Hey, Warren.
We're good.
That's not the first time that
I believe that. I believe that.
on this live stream even. He at least makes sure that if we're doing on his computer, he makes sure that all those tabs are
That's
closed
true, yeah.
first.
At least I say it out loud. Not like
So funny.
I'm not gonna try to hide it like a tool.
Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah. But getting back to topic,
Still couldn't figure out what school meant.
he said it's Knoxville.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So it's a fictional place and a real place.
Yes.
Are there any other major things that you feel that by going from professional to or from amateur to professional?
I think one of the things that just needs to be talked about is the power of scale. I mean, and that goes to the same thing that Lauren was talking about when learning your stovetop boil off rate, your heat source. The same things apply as you scale up. And so when you're scaling, into a bigger kettle, especially on the commercial scale, a lot of times boil off is lower relative to the volume.
I would have suspected the other way.
So a lot of it depends on the shape. So I would say that the little coffee can styles actually probably scale pretty well with the style that we have over there. But a lot of times if you go into if you were to burn the steel barrel downtown, the steel barrel, its exhaust is like this big relative to a pretty large tank. So the boil off is lower. Also on electrical systems that use steam condensers, like they condense back their water. A lot of the water doesn't condense out the condenser. A lot of it just condenses back into the boil, meaning boil off is lower also. But learning things like that, learning things like heat points that are in there. So let's say you've got an open electrical element, and that's where you boil from. That's going to be a really hot heat source in there, which means sugars are going to caramelize on the element. Also means you run the risk of burning hot material on there as hops are floating around.
Yep.
There's a lot of random stuff that scales like that.
Yeah, on the stovetop, I just remember scrubbing the hell out of my kettle just because, it would get, especially when I would start out doing extract, that stuff would just cake on the bottom of it.
There is a lot of benefits to just buying, a nice kettle right off the bat, even if you're not going even if it's not a big kettle.
That was actually one of the nice things that my dad got me as a Christmas gift was a nice larger kettle and very little scorching on the bigger kettle.
Yeah.
And I have a propane system at home.
Nice.
Been testing pH adjustments post boil lately. Lowering pH seems to help brighten lighter and hoppy beers. Any rules of thumb for pH targets for different styles? Yes, they are, but it's a little bit harder to explain than just pH because a lot of it depends on source water. Naturally, alkaline waters are more resistant to pH change, but that means you put more acid in them before you get to the pH target you're looking for. So I guess something to think about is if you're starting from neutral water, there are pretty clear points for you to try to hit. But if you're starting from buffered water, then you run the risk of usually not hitting flavor threshold if you're using lactic or phosphoric acid. But that's just something to think about in terms of total acid, because the total acid also affects yeast metabolism and stuff like that.
And then Tom, following up on that, has a question about, do we have any recommendations on pH meters?
Yeah, keep buffer solution on hand all the time.
No, but what brands?
I don't know. I use a Milwaukee, I think. They reached out to me and almost sent me a free one, and I was like, I already have that. It's either Milwaukee or Hannah. I forget which one.
Honestly, it doesn't really matter which pH meter you
if
get.
it's cheap, take really good care of it.
Yeah. And again, the buffer solution, and make sure that you clean it well between uses, and then store it in the buffer solution.
Yeah.
And then recalibrate it every once in a while.
If it's cheap, recalibrate it every single time.
Mm-hmm.
If it's like our $200 one, we'll recalibrate that once every couple months, just to double check. But I think we've gone several months without recalibrating it, and then when we went to recalibrate it, it was 0.02 off or something like that. It was spot on.
I know that several of the breweries are very in the area outside of Genus are very pH is saying that they check multiple times throughout the brew process, and that would be the other recommendation is check pH throughout the brew process, not just beginning and end.
Especially with sours. Sours are just fun to know.
Yeah, the more information you have, whether you understand it or not, I still feel like is good to have, because then the more data, the more you can troubleshoot if there is something to troubleshoot.
And Thomas called out a good thing. Also remember temperature affects pH. And
Oh.
it actually affects gravity too when you take gravities.
Yeah, nicer pH meters can do that calibration automatically. They'll do both.
Yeah.
7th side of my random coming out. I drank almost 30 cans of brewing equipment, and till today haven't used extract. We've used extract usually because we're trying to get rid of it. Like, hey, we've got some old bags of extract, and then we'll just like, hey, let's use it. Why not? But we can make some pretty good beers with extract.
And Stefan, I'm assuming that's 30K in your currency.
Which at the time was probably more than our currency. I don't know. Maybe it's US.
Yeah.
What's his currency?
He's German.
Oh.
So I don't know when he bought all of his equipment because some of it might have been bought pre.
Now Germans just trade things in pretzels, right? That's how
Yep.
That's how their
Yeah.
currency works. Okay.
Pretzels and beer cheese.
Nice. Seems
And
like
beer.
a pretty legit system.
And Lederhosen.
About the same, he says, to the US dollar. That's a lot of equipment.
See, I want to know what the exchange rate is between like the U.S. pretzel and like a really nice German sourdough one.
Oh, yeah.
That's true, yeah.
I don't think it's 1-to-1.
No, it's definitely not
It's
one to one.
It can't be.
I think I still have Stefan
Dumb.
beat.
Yeah. I think we've kind of hit everything. And I'm just going to reiterate before we switch to the next topic.
Money spent on
Yeah.
things.
If you guys have the option to do pro-ams in your area via competitions, or you could be like me and just go friend brewers and ask them, can I make a beer on your system with you? Because I did that for 7 breweries in Spokane.
And if you're decently well qualified as a home brewer, we'll look at that and be like, what do you say about free labor?
You mean you'll clean it? Cool.
KO Brewing, I love my Apra pH 60 meter. It's under $100 and stays really accurate. The prime meters I had would get way out of whack. Yeah, all the ones that we've had that are like $40 and under get pretty far off, but they're usually pretty good at getting recalibrated and being consistent after we do that. And so it's kind of just a matter of how much work you want to do and how easy they are to calibrate. Because that's just another new nuisance in your day if they're hard to recalibrate.
Also, Adam Chumley, thank you for the update on the World Cup. I did watch some of it this morning.
Put the World Cup final on in background.
It's
Well, then
gone.
you guys would be watching the cup and not us. So
That's true. We can put it on instead of our menu.
Yeah.
do we have the licensing for that? Can we?
I don't know. If the volume was on, probably not.
We have anime on. We used to have anime
Yeah,
on in
yeah,
the
that's
background
true,
on a
I
regular
guess, yeah.
basis.
Haven't gotten in trouble yet. All right. Do you have any questions on scaling, mistakes that new home brewers make, or new pro brewers make, commercials? Oh, organization. I think that's probably pretty important to talk about.
Oh yeah.
Organization in terms of just getting tubes that you know where they go and how they work, having a system for knowing what gets set up where and what gets put away where.
And with organization, I'm going to also say timing. You can sit on homebrew a little bit longer. It's a little bit. I feel homebrew is a little bit more forgiving of if you don't hit your exact times. Like, oh, I need to dry hop exactly at this time because this is when stuff. Or hey, I need to keg it. I don't have an open keg. I can keep it in the fermenter a little bit longer than you can on the professional scale. Or at least in my experience.
That organization kind of comes with the production too. Like, especially if you're trying to make money on selling beer, then having beer in the fermenter at all times to get that process going is takes some planning and some managing and talking about what are we going to brew next? When are we going to brew next? If there's any special crazy stuff we need for it, what do we need to get, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Having things clean for the brew day so you can just jump right in and do all that.
Things that you need to, hoses that you need to hook up and pumps that you need to hook up are ready to go. On our scale, we're basically like giant home brewers here. And so instead of having like a brew house system that's all hard plumbed in, and you just got valves to switch, here we've got, pumps that we've got to take off the shelves and tubes to connect and everything like that. So,
same at No Drought.
yep.
And then I've had the opportunity to see how Yaya's system worked, and they're all.
Shout out to Yaya. We love those guys.
Yeah.
Chris and Jason are awesome.
But speaking of scaling and stuff, Stefan, has a question about how do the big guys do open fermentation, and how do they deal with cross-contamination?
Usually they have a smaller room than you think of. The relative room size to the size of the open surface area is small. And they're not really worried about other stuff being in there because there's going to be other microbes in there too. What they are worried about is they're worried about their krausen being competitive, their yeast being able to take over the environment as much as possible. And so when they transfer into, let's say, a brighting tank after fermentation or even after low krausen, they're doing so knowing that their yeast has kind of gone to bat for them during the fermentation process. Pretty much it's just a matter of having owning the space in your room. Yeah. Krausens will protect the beer for the most part. And a lot of people don't realize that is all that foamy stuff on top of the beer. How beer was originally made, that foamy stuff that has your yeast and some proteins and everything like that in there, that's your yeast creating and owning its environment. On the long-term aging scale, it's the same reason that like a lot of mixed ferms create a pellicle. That pellicle is also just saying, hey, this is my beer space, not your beer space, and keeping out bacteria.
Yeah, and the big thing is the krausen and stuff. And usually for open fermentation, they're using the same yeast across all their batches of beer, or similar enough, and they'll eventually build up their own kind of house strain.
Yeah.
So there's, yes, batch A and batch B might be different styles of beer, but they're using the same yeast.
Well, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll time it for what's called continuous fermentation or something close to continuous fermentation. And so they're instead of brewing completely new beer all the time, what they'll do is they'll just push most of their beer off into a brighting or conditioning tank, and then they will put new beer, like the same beer, on over and over and over. So they'll brew like 3-4 batches in a row on the open ferment and get it all into one big brighting tank. And then as it's brighting, that's a closed, controlled environment. But as it's actually fermenting, they've got several runs to kind of get a blend of, hey, if we do this many times, then on average it's going to taste like this. It puts less pressure on each one being exactly perfect, but then everything else is kind of taken care of in conditioning in the final part. It's like a Solera, not quite like a Solera, because it's done over a short period of time. It's like as the krausen falls, and that means the beer has less than 20% of the remaining sugars in it, then they're pumping off a good chunk of it. They're leaving some slurry, some beer, and then they're just pumping new wort on top of that. But it does, functionally it kind of works like a Solera, yeah. Uh-oh, that's a tape bottle.
Yep, no, I was right in my guessing based off the bottle caps and the masking tape that was Daniel beers.
Yeah.
So I pulled out the Pacific Northwest Czech Pils.
Whoa.
I did decide to leave the Sierra Nevada clone in there, so that way we can get a bottle of Sierra Nevada and do an actual comparison.
Nice.
Put me in a blindfold. We'll have at it.
James Costevra, I'm thinking of using sun-dried tomatoes in a lager. Might make a tincture using them, or perhaps soak them in vinegar and add that. What do you think? It's very similar to what I'm doing for my fried green tomato beer.
James, you should count that as your Alabama beer and send it to us.
Yeah.
There you
go.
What? Curious about that. What are you wanting the sun-dried tomatoes to add to it? A tomatoey flavor, or kind of like what would be the difference between adding something like that and doing just like a fresh tomato?
It concentrates the glutamic acid, the umami flavor that tomatoes have. And so my idea, my response to that, my thing that I think would be necessary for it to be good in the beer would be adding extra acid, like a little bit of citric acid or something like that to actually brighten up the beer and balance out the extra umami. So it's not just straight, warm, dark flavors.
Mommy.
Exactly. That's the reason they call it that.
And also, as I'm just going to plug the reminder, if you send beers to Genus, mark them as Matthew, so that way Warren and Jess and Harry know where to put the beers.
Because I'll drink them.
Warren will. Like, I had to fight him off of my buddy Sid's beer, but then I came in and I shared it immediately with him. Because I was a nice person.
It came out a draw, the fight. It was sumo wrestling, though.
Yeah,
so.
I also.
Ooh, that's a beautiful
I also
carbonation
forgot
on
to
it.
actually give you the coffee, the barrel aged, the bourbon barrel aged
No, you
coffee.
did.
But I held on to it longer than I should have, and I did drink some of it.
How do we send beers?
I still have a bunch of it.
USPS
really
or FedEx are the best ways to do it. Or no, sorry, not USPS. UPS. Don't send it USPS. UPS or FedEx are the ways to do it. Just put it in a box with some good wrapping in it. Make sure to add towels just in case something happens.
If you one of the tricks I've actually heard is if you're sending like actual bottles, put them in a like Ziploc plastic bag. So that way, if the bottle does break, you're not soaking the whole box.
Thomas says you skipped the ASMR.
It didn't really have much of a fizz opening, even though it's beautifully carbonated. It didn't really have much of a.
CH Homebrew for Life does have a video on how to ship beer, which is pretty good, pretty well laid out. And our address is on our website, just Genus Brewing, to send it to the brewery. And then your beer will be here, and we'll be drinking it live. Please don't poison us.
Oh my god! Jeez. Well, now that's out there.
I've heard people vacuum sealing stuff for shipping. I'd be careful on vacuum sealing because you don't want to put too much pressure on the bottle.
Yeah. This Pilsner's got a little bit of like a vegetal sulfury kind of notes to it.
Probably could lager a little bit more.
Or in the commercial world, we just try to like let it open, like sit.
Okay, here it is. It's a Czech Pils base, a little dry, thiolized, Augustemir yeast, keg hopped with a little Amarillo and a Zacca, like an Italian Pils.
That makes sense with the thiolized yeast. The fact that sulfur exists in there. So I'm going to let it sit open a little bit, and then hopefully it'll kind of neutralize. Just a squid.
Yeah, I definitely can understand the base off the nose.
Yeah, Anthony Murphy, just tuning in. You know there's a World Cup right now. Oh, wow, is there?
We should have done a beer World Cup.
That'd be fun.
You mean soccer?
Yeah, it's not called beer.
Please don't hate me.
Only Americans call it beer.
Yeah.
Thank you. I can barely speak English, Stefan, and I work in a call center as my day job.
What are you doing, Step Yeast? That's nice. Thiolized Augustiner yeast, kegged with. Oh, okay. Yeah, a lot of like an Italian Pils. Nice.
Yeah.
It's Augustiner. I'm reading everything that you already read, but just right after you.
Yeah. Adam, I'm gonna say send that 6-pack, and then also send. I may text you my address so you can send me a little 3-pack so I can sit on some of those beers.
Sign up for UPS My Choice. It's way cheaper than showering up to the UPS store for the same box. You can enter your info and just drop off your box for less money. Nice.
My favorite way for getting beer from one place to another is to just go and visit the place and then bring it back in your check bag.
Yeah, that's what most of you should do, is just visit here.
Yeah.
And then give us beer, and then you can take some beer home.
Yeah. Because then we get to see you, and that's cool.
And I am more than happy to give beer tours around Spokane.
Daniel, yeah, that sulfur kind of clung around even. Let it air out for a week or so. Gotcha, yeah. Even just letting it sit out in this glass is getting rid of some of it, or I'm just getting less sensitive to it, one of the two.
It definitely has that. I mean, I don't know if you wouldn't have said it, I don't know if I would have picked up on it. I mean, I'm not as, my palate's not as calibrated to all the different science $10 birds.
Yeah, I tell people my palate's not that great, but I just have tasted so many things and know what I'm tasting that it's better.
Well, and there are certain things that certain people are more sensitive to than others. Like I know, I always use Hayden as the example. He can pick up the slightest hint of diacetyl on any beer.
Yeah,
like that. He's a super taster on diacetyl.
Yeah, and I'm more sensitive to like weight jokes. So if you made fun of me for my size,
which is why we talk about rock climbing after the live stream.
Are you calling me a rock? Patrick Sandy had a fermenter malfunction yesterday on my green tomato cream ale. It was on day 6 of fermentation. Did you lose it? Is it still good? Is it salvageable? Let us know. We need to know.
We do need to know, because that I was looking forward to seeing what beers you guys sent in.
Yeah, I am ready to put ours into little corny kegs to flavor. That'll be like my bright tank for ours.
Do we want to dive into yeast comparison?
We can talk about it a little bit. Let's just make this an open topic because I want to do a video with a side by side. Since we've got the Brewzilla 65 liter, I want to do basically a 11 10.5 gallon batch and split it into 2 5-gallon fermenters. That way we have the exact same beer made on the exact same system in the exact same way. And then we can just split it into 2 fermenters and give the side-by-side comparison using 2 yeasts side-by-side. So what yeast do you want to see compared? Original thought was regular versus thiolized yeast, but I haven't gotten in the Phantasm powder yet, and so that'd be something to try out, which I was originally going to do with Spokane Brew Supply, but Aaron seems pretty busy, and I don't know if he's going to get around to it, so I might have to do it solo. But hopefully he does, and then we can do it together. It'd be cool.
For the guy sitting between you two, remind me again what thiolized is.
So it's a genetically modified yeast that makes it so that a yeast that previously wouldn't be able to biotransform. There's 2 different ways to biotransform. One is thiolization, which is basically breaking apart a sugar compound that releases a thiol, and the sugar gets eaten. The thiol is stable and stays in the beer. And the thiol is a thiol is a aroma compound bound to a sulfur.
Oh, okay.
And so that is a aroma compound that generally is a little bit more stable than some esters in terms of how it's going to stay in the beer and not get kicked off during fermentation.
Gotcha. And that's different from like a clipped.
It's different than the gene clipped ones. Yeah.
Okay.
So those are phenol reducing yeasts. So those make it so that they don't make the clove flavor.
So I'm going to get caught up on chat here real quick. So Sean mentioned shipping bottles. Take 2 large Ziploc bags, put a bottle in it, roll up the bottle so there is no air, seal it, and do the same with the second bag. That's his trick. And then Daniel mentioned this is his first attempt at lagering at proper temps as well, which is very hard to do on the homebrew scale,
Nice.
in my experience and opinion. And then Patrick for his fermenter is I had to open transfer it to a larger fermenter real quick, worried about oxygen. Should I hit it with some Ascorbs at packaging? If so, how much for a gallon?
For 1 gallon, it'd be like a gram. At packaging, I think if there's oxygenation in there or oxidation in there, I think the damage is probably already done. Unless it's still fermenting. If it's actively fermenting on transfer, I just wouldn't probably worry about it, and then I would maybe hit it with some Ascorbs at packaging. But if the damage is done, then it's you can't go back on some of those reactions. So.
And then some suggestions for the yeast comparisons. Stefan Stoudemire said do a comparison of different Hefeweizen yeasts, so Munich versus American versus Belgian. So that's 3. Jimmy suggested wet versus dry of the same yeast strand would be a good comparison, especially with that video that everyone loved.
Yeah.
The Yeast.
Yeast.
Yeah, when we do it on the small scale, because we've got little 5-gallon stainless steel SS Brewtech guys with a blow-off tube. Don't really have a whole lot of temperature control there, except for with the heat wrap. I don't know what point I'm trying to make. Just to
we don't. But we usually I just try to make Jess cold or warm depending on what yeast we're using.
Yeah,
that's the way to go.
Oh, and the yeast that Patrick was using is Lutra, so he figured it was done.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I don't know if I have got a.
I don't have an answer. Jimmy also suggested
get it into a keg as soon as possible, or bottles as soon as possible. That'd be I'd probably, instead of getting into a bigger fermenter, I'd probably have got it into keg or bottle pretty quickly. But then you have to do all the flavoring. Maybe just add something with a sugar component during flavoring and hope that kicks it back up. Mm-hmm. More fermentables. It's gonna be a honey cream ale now. Jimmy versus wet versus dry yeast. I like that. Someone say the C word so I can win a bingo. That's awesome. I forgot we were doing this. We need to start posting the bingo at the beginning of chats again.
Well, it's because I'm not at the computer anymore.
Sure. Well, also I feel like a lot of those were like things that Tim said, so we'd have to adjust those for Tim not being on the live anymore.
Hey, Jimmy and Adam, you guys have a task is to figure out what are going to be the bingo topics so I can put them together.
Yeah.
Is the C word I think it is?
Caramel? Crystal?
Oh, I was gonna say coupler
Oh.
or cunt.
Yeah.
No, it's a ferret crystal.
Yes.
Jimmy also suggested on the yeast dry pitch versus starter of dry yeast, and then or 1 versus 2 packets with a lager.
Yeah, I mean that fermenter is like barely almost big enough. We could do a thruple side by side, but we need
Which is why I really like that Hefeweizen of the 3
Yeah.
different hef strains.
if we want to do that, we'd need 3 different identical fermenters, though.
Yeah, 2 is what we're working with here, folks.
Well, because the one that is currently at no drought is not the same as the 2 that you guys have here.
Yeah.
How? What's different about it?
It's a different brand.
Oh, okay.
Eventually,
I guess we could just use carboys, but that's kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I don't like those. I like the ones that are easy to use. There are the Brew Built X1 Pros that I'd probably rather do those in 10 gallons than 5 gallons. But those ones have they're just a single plug-in, and they use some crazy expanding and contracting mechanism or something with electrical current to make it so that you can heat and cool it in the fermenter without glycol.
What the hell?
So the whole thing does a heating and cooling in the same vessel. That'd be cool to use.
Okay, quick question is opinions on tap water brewing. Know your tap water.
That's a good
That
question. So tap water is going to obviously change it's going to change around the year wherever you are, and it's going to be different location to location. So in Spokane, a lot of people are fine tap water brewing. The biggest thing that we have is we don't use chloramines, we use chlorines. And so first thing that you need to know if you're brewing with tap water is whether or not your city water puts chloramines or chlorines in there. If you have chloramines, you need to chemically treat them with something like Camden tablets, or you need to filter them through a carbon filter or something like that. Chlorines,
you boil them off too.
Chlorines, you can't.
Okay.
So diatomic chlorine exists as a gas at room temperature, and then at boiling temperature, it evaporates really, really fast. So we have diatomic chlorine in our water is what sanitizes it, and so that one boils off.
Yeah.
But chloramines, which are used in a lot of the world, especially hotter places like Arizona and stuff like that, where they don't have naturally occurring aquifers right below them, the chloramines don't evaporate, and so that's when you got to have the carbon filter or the Camden tablets. Other than that, just know your chemistry, your minerals that are in there.
One thing, adding on to what Matt said about knowing what your water is, just short of sending in a sample and paying X amount of money to get it tested by a professional lab, you can go to your pet supply store if they have like an aquarium section and get like a whole little test kit that comes with different strips for the different things you're testing for, and that way you can get, I mean, it's mostly a range, so it's not super duper accurate. I mean, it's accurate enough to not kill your fish if that's what you're actually testing it for, but you can get kind of an idea of what your water is based off that, and that's like, I don't know, like maybe at the most like $40.
Well, and Patrick or Adam said he sent his off for $40 to get professionally tested. Also, if you're in a small enough, depending on how large your area is, like I live over in Liberty Lake, I can legitimately just call up my sewer and water district because we're all on one.
That's another thing too. I tried to go to our water district and they didn't have that information, which was here in the valley.
It's not. It's not all the information you need to know for brewing, but it gives you a general kind of, oh, here's some of the stuff in it. Yeah. I've known because they're more worried about just general drinking and for plant life rather than for yeast health like we are.
Yeah, we're adding extra steps. They're like, well, it's not going to kill you, so what do you want from us?
And then okay, and then Messy wins. Thank you for that update. Lars asks, has anyone ever had a really tasty thiolized beer? They all taste a bit like bruised fruit to me.
I've had a handful of decent ones.
Yeah, I haven't had too many yet.
I need to do my own experiments. I need to do more side by side.
Oh, North Carolina coming in.
Such a new technology.
Yep. Yeah. And then Ken also asks, have you ever used Voss at lower temperatures like 68 degrees?
Yeah.
Yes, we have.
It's pretty neutral, actually. You'd be surprised. It comes out. So at like 75 to 85, you start to throw a lot of those orange tangerine notes that you're looking for. And then it gets a little bit more neutral, but with some other smaller flavors that pop up at the warmer, like normal quake fermenting temperatures. But if you ferment it super low, it's actually pretty neutral.
And then Patrick Sandy, on the whole topic of his Alabama beer, he's like, I'll throw it in a keg with some sugar for natural carb and hope. That's actually not bad. Option there. And then and he's waiting on cans for his new cannular, which is exciting.
And Adam responded to that saying, Patrick, if you know a couple folks who can their beer, I'd suggest buying a half pallet and getting it sent to a brewery you're buddies with. You can who has a loading dock and a forklift, and then split the cost. That's basically what all the small breweries do with us.
Yeah.
It's way cheaper than getting boxes of cans. They can run like $150 for 207.
And then to get rid of the pallet taking up space in the brewery dining area, we stick them in giant black trash bags and count them out to 200 so we can.
But just wait until we've got a forklift and a pallet rack, and we can just put the whole thing up on the pallet rack.
That would be amazing, yeah.
And then we can just scoot around on our new lift and then go up and grab cans.
Until then, though, I'm sticking those bitches in trash bags.
Actually, we could put with a forklift, we could put the whole thing up on the upper level and just put the pallet next to the chute. And then just. That's my,
I don't know if you can see it back here, but a few months ago, I made a little can chute that it makes a really fun noise when the cans are going down it.
It's behind my head somewhere. I don't know if they can see it. You can kind of see it.
Yep.
I just put my head in front of it when they did that.
And speaking about water testing, Patrick mentioned testing your water twice a year in the winter and the summer, which is not bad, especially for if you live in larger population density areas, because they will change, especially for cleaning, wet wells or where they're pulling the water supply from. So that is something that is very useful to do if you are. The other option is ROs. There are filter systems and like RO systems that you can get for your house now that aren't super expensive. I know that's what Hayden does for all of his beers because he can't stand the flavor of his tap water.
Yeah. Jimmy had some add-ons to the Vasa 68, and really good point. One of them is do not underpitch. So a lot of times with quake strains, when you're fermenting them super hot and fast, which you need lots of nutrients for if you do, but if you're fermenting them super hot and fast, oftentimes you can get away with pitching, like dramatically under pitching. But if you're fermenting at normal beer temperatures, you should treat it like a normal beer. Heavy oxygen, still use nutrient, but pitch a normal rate with the starter and everything like that.
Speaking of oxygen, we add a little bit of oxygen to our Christmas tree beer, and the OG has definitely gone down a little bit. So yeah.
That was the key.
I might just touch on this now since I have it. So Brewzilla sent us some of those some different wrapped toys, the fermentation pill, the temperature controller, and I've been sticking the pills in our fermenters here, and it's just been really cool to be able to be like, I wonder what the beer's doing, and then to be able to go on your app and check to see, what the current temperature is, what the current gravity is, what your attenuation is, and it's just, I love graphs, especially as a coffee roaster, having the technology integration with that to produce consistent things. It's just, oh boy, I really enjoy that.
Would you guys like that as a segment on the live stream? Because I've thought about doing this for the last couple weeks. I just haven't put together the exactly how. I probably need my computer in front of me or something like that. But what the beer doing kind of thing.
What the beer be doing?
What the beer doing? So we can put the graphs with the temperatures and the gravities and all that, in front of you and be like, hey, this is what this beer is doing right now. And then if you follow us on Instagram, you could probably see some snippets of us having made the beer, so you know what beer is being made. And then you can follow us on the live stream and be like,
and then you guys can see fermentation profiles. Ooh.
Oh. And see
that'd be really
when the
cool
gravity is dropping.
That'd be really cool for the state beers.
Yeah.
Also, Jimmy says that he'll help test out those pills. Which is, yep. And
that's actually, that emoji of the pill is almost exactly what it looks like.
Oh, yeah.
Which is also, with Jimmy being one of our local guys.
Yeah, come on in.
And then Robert asked, because there's a lot of just kind of talking about can stuff with Adam giving a lot of information since he cans all his beer.
Mm-hmm.
And then also just kind of the Thiol's creating some funky fruit flavors. But Robert asks, what's your thoughts on hot side aeration?
I have tried in several ways to get hot side aeration into beer, and I have never achieved it.
Stefan's. Are you answering?
Yeah,
Stephen?
well, I was gonna look it up because I stuck it in our hazy to watch that one for the first time, and I had that at a pretty consistent 12 psi, and I don't know, those things seem like they're pretty sturdy. I mean, I can imagine that if you're going any higher in pressure to the point where it would break, you probably shouldn't have that pressure in a fermenter anyways.
Yeah, I know that they came out with the whole wrap system shortly after they were really pushing like the all-rounder fermenter, all those plastic, the PET versions of pressurized fermenters that are like fermenters and serving vessels all in one. And so I know that they probably would be designed to pressure ferment as high as those could go. But yeah, I think the IPA that we had it in was that probably topped out just barely over 12 psi.
Dr. Hans has used those in his beers, or has he used those in his beers, and he regularly ferments at 35. I don't know. I haven't watched enough of Dr. Hans videos.
Yeah, I know. He does use those same pressure ferment, the all-rounders and stuff like that.
Oh, he does? Okay.
The last video I saw of him, he had like a little firm chamber that had the top and bottom on it, and so he had two beers going on top of one another in those PET pressure fermenters, which we have one of those.
I don't think what it'd say.
By the way, 53 people watching, and we've got a grand total of 15 likes. If only 3 of you could hit that thumbs up button, no more, no less, and do not do me wrong there, then that'd be great. So
the 3 of you who
Get on.
haven't
I can't
already
find the
hit
information. I'll look into it though.
Stefan, as soon as we get I'll post it into the Discord. So that way that information's available for everyone.
Yeah. Even just in a quick Google search, I'm not really finding much. It's probably something like you might have to email them about, or it's probably somewhere in
Thomas
like a
said
PDF.
that he actually had one of those crack.
Really?
well, we haven't broken one yet.
These
That
things.
said, we've only used them in like 3 or 4 beers so far.
I'm also surprised, even though you've done it in 3 or 4 beers, you haven't broken one yet, knowing you guys.
Hey man, I've only broken one hydrometer in my career, and that was here, and that was last week.
I feel like I made it through until probably like a year and a half ago before breaking one, and then I broke like 2 or 3 right in a row.
Yeah.
There was a period where I was breaking one like at once a month for a while, so I bought like 4 at once. I think Warren was here and like watched me walk in and just walk to the like thing with like 4 in my hand.
You
He's
having
like,
problems there, bud?
yes, I still have 2 of them at my house.
Shanna E, I like you guys.
Hey.
Aw.
Shanna, if you're hating Shanna, then you should thumbs up again. And if you're someone else, then let us know who you are.
Holy likes, Batman! Look at that. Wait, I'm logged into mine. I'll like it too. Ba-boom! Can we get up to 69, guys?
Heck yeah. You
I've
guys
broken
wanna,
more than 10 hydrometers. Yep.
Atta man.
Breweries are notorious for breaking theirs.
do you want to do a tasting / a smelling of the Belgian blonde and have that be the last thing we do?
Yeah, I'll go grab it.
So get your questions in now. Also, since we're wrapping up at the end, I'll do my standard state beer listing, so that way people know. Alabama is, and we'll do some shout outs too, but Alabama,
If you're Alabama still, you're running out of time. You got pecan beer that's not a porter. We're doing a pecan amber lager, and the recipe to that is in the description below if you want to check out ours.
and then
It is Shanna. I should have said if Hayden is your rather than the other way around. But that was the quickest way for me to say it.
and also a fried green tomato for Alabama. Alaska is either juniper or tree.
Yep.
because we understand that not everyone. Shout out to our 2 Australians that watch regularly.
Good eye.
They may not be able to get juniper. And then there's a beautiful beer shot there.
Hey, you got more yeast in yours.
But Alaska's either juniper or tree. And we're going to say it could be any tree. We're just saying tree beer.
Yep. Here, you want to smell?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that actually smells really nice.
Super fun.
And then, so Alaska's January's, which is going to be due by mid-February. Remember, February is a short month.
Yeah.
And then after that is Arizona, and I will update the pin message this week or this weekend.
It's on the Discord. Check the Discord. Shanna says the one and only Shanna that you should know. That is true. However, keep in mind, I don't always know everybody by name who's on the live stream. So,
yep.
I don't know any of you except for the 2 that I met apparently.
Yep. And then after that for so Arizona is going to be brewed in February, and then after that is in March is going to be Arkansas, which is our black. I said blackberry cobbler French saison
no.
because I can't spell berry.
Blackberry cobbler.
See, it says berry.
That's a good play on the word.
Yeah. So some do you guys want to taste first, or do you want to do questions?
Let's go ahead and let's do the tasting real quick. And if you got more questions to add on, then let's go ahead and do those.
I'm keeping track of the questions, guys. Don't worry about it.
Then yeah, check out the Discord for things. And by the way, I'm going to frame this as if, because this is also going to be how we end the video. When you actually watch the video of us making this beer, which will be posted next week probably.
Ooh.
We're gonna have a couple grain of glasses posted next week actually if we get the tree beer
Yeah.
out too.
Oh
You stop it,
my
phone.
God.
One more time, one more ring. I swear, I'll come over there. Did it again.
Let me take this really quick. This is business stuff right here. Hold on. Genus Brewing.
You're live on the air.
Boop 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 boop.
Our hours today are 11:30 to 6.
Why is the sky blue? Well, you see, the sky actually is clear, but there's water in the sky
We
that
definitely
has
have
to
wine
refract
yeast.
light as the sun's going through. And as it does that, it makes a little ray, and then the thing that actually comes into our eyeballs is blue or something like that.
I'm going to say the sky is currently
We
gray.
do actually, yes.
Yeah, it's very grayish white currently.
It's snowing.
We got it all for you.
Different
Yes, sir.
refractorizings.
We've got it. See you soon. Alrighty, we'll be here. Bye.
So it has been about
Nice.
2.5 weeks since we brewed this beer. As people who are watching this video on the video part of it will know, because they'll have just watched all the brewing parts of it. And it is done. It's ready to keg, moderately carbonated. And let's go ahead and jump in and give it a taste and let you know what it
It
tastes
is
like.
sitting at 5.2%, and the gravity right now is 1010.
I'm just going to say off the nose, it is kind of fruit. It is definitely on the fruitier side on the nose.
But it's got a fun, like it's not super like deep Belgian smell flavor.
Yeah, no, it's a very light fruity. It's almost
Which you intended to kind of suppress some of that a little bit, yeah, because we fermented it cold.
The idea was, yeah, to try to drop out some of the potential esters that the yeast.
Look at this graph. Look at it. Oh, wow.
We get to see all the stuff. People who are watching this in the actual video will be able to see that this too, because we can take the graph and do it. So cool. It's science, guys. On the
These brewers
flavor,
are getting smart.
that's right. On the flavor, it's a little bit like pink peppercorny, a little bit of bubblegummy.
Definitely bubblegummy, yeah.
And
that's probably what I was getting on the nose was that kind of bubblegummy fruitiness.
yeah, that kind of brightness. It's really good. It comes across bright. I think it's relatively suppressed, and it's gonna, when it's fully conditioned and everything like that, I think it's gonna pop
Yes.
and be it's gonna be a good seller.
Yeah, aside from the coffee Kolsch, I think it'll be the lightest thing that we have on. That's not a seltzer.
We should probably make a neutral light beer at some point in time, but I think this will get
Got
the
enough
job
2-row for it.
done. It has like a little bit of witty vibes,
Yeah.
like wit beery vibes,
Mm-hmm.
just because the phenols are dominating more than the esters. Yeah, it's bright, poppy. It's good. And if you like this video, check out this other ones. Never mind, I'll do that at the end, and we'll figure out a different way to add that. Check out these videos that are floating in front of my hands. You're welcome, by the way, everyone who's watching on the live, for the behind the scenes that was there. That's exactly what we do for when we're doing closeouts to videos and stuff.
Okay, so 2 questions now that we've done the tasting.
Okay.
Robert Brown asks, what type of boil out rate do you shoot for to stave off DMS?
I don't worry about DMS unless I know that my malts are stale. So DMS from S-methylmethionine, which is the previous precursor that we used to think, or where DMS came from when that, I'm going to call that a homebrewing myth, when that homebrewing myth became a thing, no longer exists because of current malting practices. So with the vast majority, even with small scale maltsters that you could find like our local maltster, Link Malts, SMM is just driven off in the malting process, even with the lightest base malts. Part of that has to do with we can now more accurately get to a certain degree of malt modification before the kilning stage, and part of that is just that we know how to consistently kiln the malts. We've got systems to do that, even on small scale maltsters. And so SMM, no longer a precursor. The only way you're going to get DMS in your beer from malts, even very light malts, is if your beer is, or your malts are stored in a slightly humid environment and they're stored warm. That's going to cause microoxidations in the malt themselves, which is going to create a compound called DMSO. And if DMSO is a thing that you've got, then you probably need to do over a 60-minute boil anyway. It needs to be rigorous. I don't know in terms of the actual percentage of the beer that needs to come off. Probably going to be like 10% of your beer is going to be boiled off over the course of the beer or more, of the boil or more. But the trick to not having DMS in your final product is going to be malt storage, not necessarily. If you have good quality fresh malts, then you don't have to worry about it. That's the point.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Also, because I remember just having thoughts and stuff. I did finally figure out what the alternative for Colorado is, which I know is way down the road, but Colorado is actually known for like cantaloupe food, like actual cantaloupes. I also am.
I thought Colorado was just known for beer.
Well, no, that's
Beer and
actually
weed. Beer and weed.
Well, that's actually what I'm going to say is the alternative is an American light lager.
With
Because
cantaloupe?
of those Rocky Mountain Coors cans.
Oh yeah.
Because Coors is based out of Colorado.
Right,
so
golden, yeah.
So you're going to have 3 options for Colorado. Either do a cantaloupe, a Rocky Mountain oyster, which is what Peter's going to try to figure out how to do because he needs to figure out where to get Rocky Mountain oysters.
I already know where to get them.
Or or your best version of an American light lager that is better than the mass-produced guys. Warren, that's the challenge I'm giving you.
Okay, we're putting Lutra in
For
it.
Colorado.
We're doing a Rocky Mountain Oyster Cantaloupe Light Lager.
2 minutes. Oh gosh.
Yikes.
So I mean, honestly, if you're doing Rocky Mountain Oyster, I imagine the flavor from that's not going to necessarily come through very easily.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not a flavor that you want to overdo. And so my thought is a light lager would be a good way to be like, that does have a little bit of bull testicle in it. Like, then you can really taste the flavor without having to have a lot of that flavor in there.
Well, we already do make a light. We make Genus Light.
Yeah.
Genus Stone Light.
Stone.
Yeah.
And
And
we're going
then-
to try to get cease and desisted by Coors.
Yeah.
We just make a cold
Fucking
activated
rocket
can.
our street cred.
And I'm going to say, Frank, thank you for supporting us for over a year, and good seeing you in the live stream.
Yeah.
Then Sean has some, because he's been giving us his Northern California updates. Ribald has their Dunkel up and their chocolate stout. They'll be ready in early 2023. And Brewblit is estimated in March to open up their tap house.
I'll be in track season, so I can't travel in March. But after track season, I would love to come down there.
I might convince Pierre to take me on a road trip.
Maybe.
Um,
We're getting really weird with unmalted barley. Sort of, but unmalted barley, any way that you use unmalted barley, shouldn't have SMM because a lot of that is released as a byproduct of the germination process. Mm-hmm. So even with unmalted barley, if you use it in a standard brewing, like without malting it, trying to malt it yourself, if you try to malt it yourself, I could see how you can get SMM in there. This is going back to the DMS question. But if you brew with it and don't try to malt it, then you also still wouldn't risk DMS. Side notes.
Jimmy said, speaking of unmalted barley, I think is what sparked this, is would you be concerned about some from an air-dried malts for the DMS? I think Sugar Creek has one that they do that way for a super light malt.
I'd have to test it. I'd have to do a side-by-side and figure that out. That's not something I know the answer to off the top of my head.
And then Adam S., if you pressure ferment in a corny keg, how much firm cap should you use? Is there a risk of using too much?
For the most part, no. There's not a risk of using too much. But you really only need a handful of drops.
And then Ken Kid, have you ever crossed 2 yeasts together and then pitched at the same time?
Yes.
Yes. That is actually something that's not uncommon in this brewery.
Well, yeah, if we
yeah.
got 2 yeasts that are pretty similar and they're about to expire, we'll just build the recipe around that. Pressure keeps the krausen down a bit, but I'd only do 4.5 gallons in a 5-gallon keg. That's Jimmy responding to Adam's question on pressure fermenting in a corny keg. Seconded, unless you're pressure fermenting in a 6-gallon corny keg, in which case you got a little bit of headroom. Shanna E, can you do a beer pairing with the foods at the brewery? I want to try dem oysters. Yes, we absolutely should do that. It's not going to happen for the first 2 because that's going to take a little bit of time to set up. But yes, I would love. I think it'd be super fun to be doing beer and food pairings every time we release a state beer,
Yeah. And I'm going to plug,
especially for the Rocky Mountain oysters. So we just have to do it for that.
those of you who are new or stuff, go check out the Discord. There's a whole channel on the state beers. I will get some of them updated because as we get closer, because now that we've done 2, and I will also, once we get the first couple beers out, I will start reaching and videos out. I'll start reaching out to other brew tubers and Instagram beer people.
Speaking of brew tubers, shout out to Steve, the apartment brewer. Peter put out a video not long ago, kind of, playfully challenging him, but also playfully
Hitting on him?
asking him out on a date.
I need you, Steve. Come back to me.
I actually miss having Steve in the live chat. He used to be in the live chat every Sunday with us.
Yeah, he's in there
That's
for a while. Yeah, no, he's great sport about that. That was awesome that he commented in character, which is fun.
Do we get Taylorfish oysters? I don't know.
I also don't know. I got mine from I linked it through a channel of one of the YouTubers that I follow, who is he's like a fitness YouTuber. And I completely blanked the name of both of them, but yeah, I've got a link for it. I know where to find Rocky Mountain oysters.
Hey, Steel Chair's here.
What up?
Right as we're finishing
Hey.
up.
A little bit late.
Hey, Steel Chair, since I know you're also local, you should do the state beers.
Yes. He has our fermenter, so you can do 1 barrel of it.
Oh yeah, okay. So that's the guys.
Yeah.
Oh sweet. Hi. Pleasure selling that to you. Glad it's going to you.
Yeah.
He also has a Twitch channel that he occasionally streams brewing on.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. All right, are we done with questions? We're gonna do the closeout.
Let's do closeout.
All right, Jack, use this for. I'm gonna send you this, but use this for the closeout for the actual video too. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you want the link to this recipe, it's in the description below. Those of you that are on the live stream, the description below the video that this is gonna get published on. Like, subscribe, comment, ring some bells. Buy everything that we own.
Real quickly, Steel Chair Brewing, we're doing every month we're doing a beer per state. There's a whole list in our Discord, which I will quickly grab.
He's not just talking to Steel Chair, he's talking to everybody that's at the end of both this live stream and the blonde video that'll get published next week.
Yep. Yeah, okay, I'm going to my phone to get the
But cool, yeah, you should
Discord link.
do it.
Do it.
Drink beer here at the place that we're at.
Invite,
Follow us on Instagram.
copy link.
Check the Discord for all the state beers.
Yep.
Merry Christmas if you're seeing this around Christmas time.
Yeah, happy holidays.
Yeah.
Enjoy responsibly.
And
If you're
there's
watching
the
this super
Discord
late,
link.
Merry Easter.
Oh, Jimmy almost me and Jimmy did it at the same time.
Nice.
And I also like your idea, Jimmy, of doing a smoked Rocky Mountain oyster to make a smoked lager.
Yeah.
So
Is this going to be one of those Midwest goodbyes where we say goodbye like 5 times but don't actually
that's
leave?
usually how our
Yeah.
live streams are.
Pretty soon we're gonna start offering to like fix somebody's house.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll watch your kids next weekend. Hey.
We should try to see if we can like get a cold activated can label, and all that happens when it gets cold is like a penis shows up.
Yeah, that would be.
That's the way to go.
Couldn't put that in our can printer
Okay.
or our label printer.
Now, I was going to say, someone has to walk over and end the live stream.
Yeah.
I don't know how to work that thing, so it's going to be you, Peter.
I'm on it.
Jimmy suggests cold activated nail polish.
That'd be cool, yeah.